I'll give you my perspective. Everyone's going to have their own personal perspective. But I think as we share our perspectives, because some of us may have a more critical perspective, some may have a more optimistic perspective, some may be realistic and pessimistic and all the above. So I tend to be more of an optimist, but I want to kind of share, some of the good things that I see happening as well as some of the challenges. And Rachel also asked that I share a story just about what we might need to do. It's just more like a metaphor of where we may be, and I think, because as we go ahead, we are gonna do things differently. You're always gonna have to do things differently. Your expectations coming into something are always going to be off, in my opinion. You're not gonna guess it right, no matter how much prayer you do or anything like that. So. Even though the Lord will give you insight and all that, but it's always going to be we'll always be changing along the way. And so, I think first, just to put things into perspective, I'm encouraged that by only meeting once a month, I still feel like, especially coming out of the summer, which a lot of churches cancel services during the summer, like not all services, they'll cancel one of their services, and their attendance will plummet quite dramatically. In spite of those realities, we maintained a fairly strong attendance during the times we met in the summer, exceeding at least my expectations. At times I thought, man, we shouldn't even meet like this month. I mean, I thought that, just like part of it was laziness, but just like, are we really going to meet in August and July? Maybe we should just wait till September to meet again. But we met, and just in terms of perspective, we have more people attending the Scotia service than we do Wood Street Chapel, which is an established Foursquare church. We have more people attending the Scotia service than we have attending Church on the Rock right now. So just in terms of people, we are meeting a need, a pretty strong need. Even though the ability to build community is limited when you only meet once a month, there is some of that happening. And some of the people there are already in community with each other. And so that's not even what they're really looking for. They are very appreciative, I think, of the worship, and they're very appreciative of the teaching. And I'm really enjoying working with Kathy Onsel, who is the vice principal across the street, and she and her husband, for them, they really are enjoying the services down in Scotia. They look forward to going to the services there. We've had new people come every time. So there's a lot of very encouraging markers, I think, just indicators that God is behind this. Mm-hmm. I do believe, though, that the challenge that we face, one of the big challenges, is continuing to invite people to come. Because often people, and we run into this all the time at the church, but we have this idea that if we just do something, people are going to show up, or if we pray about it and do something, people are just going to show up. And that rarely happens. It really takes word of mouth, people inviting other people, and following up too. Like we have, I don't know, I assume we have a database of our visitors that we're building, but just, in my mind, it's like if we called every person who's been there, and gave them a really clear reminder, like a week ahead of time, and just invited them out and gave them something to look forward to, I think a lot of them would show up. Because it's sporadic, I think people forget about it. They can forget about it. Mm-hmm. So it takes that extra step right now, I believe, to really do that. And I think if we haven't been doing that, I think we could grow immediately by doing that once. If we called through the roster, again, I'm making an assumption that hasn't happened, invitations that go out, making sure it's in the newspaper, free advertisement, North Coast Happenings, the Scotia publication, Rio Dale publication has been useful. We've had people come based on that. Facebook invitations. And I know that people often are like, well, is the church all about marketing? No, this is like marketing, but to me, it's communication, and it's part of this. It's an expression of the spiritual battle. It doesn't minimize the role of prayer, but every person represents a soul. Like they are. They are that. They are. And so whatever we can do to reach more people, it's going to take some of that effort, and that's hard work. But I think that's something as a team we need to think about. How can we really do that well and promote it well? I mean, I think it'd be fun to have like a pre-service barbecue or something like that. That'd be the kind of thing you could have people look forward to, you know. Not that you could do that every time, but like what kinds of things can we do as an extra incentive? So like the things we've done with children, some of those things were created in that way, and they were effective in getting more kids to show up. So each time I'm kind of thinking about like what could we do like that. I'll share the story that Rachel wanted me to share with you. It's and I think Leslie's already heard this story, but there's a pastor in San Francisco that I spoke to about a month or so ago, and I was trying to find stories of success in terms of church planting, particularly in the city of San Francisco, in the urban areas within our denomination. And so this is a person I really don't know very well. His name's Seth Waters. And I just wanted to hear his story because I heard they were experiencing fruitfulness there. And it was a very interesting story because he came from a large church in Colorado, and he built a team. Like it was gonna plant a church in San Francisco. This was their whole plan. Prayed about it. They actually hired a consultant who was gonna tell them how to do it. And their whole strategy was, we're gonna do this big, and when we start, we're gonna have 300 people on our first weekend, and we're all gonna move there. And you know, they had this a very in-depth strategy, a huge vision. They were going to raise $500,000 before they even went. They raised $250,000. They all moved there, you know, quit their jobs, moved, you know, started this this church. Well, they didn't start the church, but they were going to start some preview services. Before they had their first service, though, they went door to door. They invited like 30,000. They knocked on 30,000 doors. Actually, that was over the course of the first year. So they did some of that before the first service. Some of it was during the start of this thing. And so they also were working with another church in the Bay Area that was going to help them. And so their first preview service, they had 50 people. And like 25 of them were from the other church. And like 15 of them were from their team. And like 5 people from the community, like, something like that. This is like all of a sudden they're getting scared. Like this isn't going the way we thought it would, you know. And it ended up like all the previous services were like that. Their first service, where they were supposed to have 300 people, had like 45 people. They knew they were in big trouble. Like this thing was not going anywhere. After 3 months, they had spent all the money they had. And Seth said, I just had to go to my team and say, if you want to be a part of this any longer, go get a job. We're all going to go work at Starbucks or whatever, you know, we're going to get jobs. And he felt like, you know, he wasn't going to go anywhere, but he was going to continue to persevere. But they didn't change their plan much. They didn't change their strategy much. They just kind of worked harder at trying to do what they thought they were supposed to do. But as that year progressed, they were getting absolutely nowhere. So I think it was just over 1 year into it, he said he was deciding whether or not he would quit or whether or not he was going to stay. And he had people telling him, you just need to quit and go work on staff at a church. Flee to a mega church and get hired on staff at a church. And one other person said, you shouldn't leave unless God tells you to leave. And he said he was just like weeping, like just trying to decide like what should he do, because it's not just about him, it's about his family, like trying to support them and dragging all these people through what's become now a very painful, you know, I mean, it wasn't completely that way, but you feel like a failure in those times. But he ended up feeling like God said, you shouldn't leave, you know, I've called you here. And he said, but what you're doing is you're building this church the way you think it should be built. You need to stop doing that. You need to build it the way I'm telling you to build it. Like I'll give you that vision. You need to let go of your vision. You have to let go of your dream. You have to let all those things die. And he said he really, really did that. He just let it all just shatter. Like he said, he uses a mirror and kind of uses that as an illustration of what he had to do, because the vision he had was like his vision. And he had to break that mirror and like look to God for his vision. And since all that happened, the moment that happened, things started happening. Like they started reaching more people. And it was it was kind of just letting go of their model that they were trying to adopt, and I think being more relational and that's another part of the story. I really don't know. I know it was more just a change of their focus and a letting go of kind of what they thought they were ever going to be. Because they thought they were going to be like this multi-site church and have all these things going on, and they became content with a different kind of thing. So they actually now meet in an old church for very, very little in San Francisco. It's an awesome place to meet. They have about 150 people now. And that's been in just going from like 25 to 150 in I think maybe about a year and a half or 2 years. And things are just really happening for them now. But I think out of that story, it just makes me think, like, we had an idea with this. Let's do, Faith Center service to the south, and let's, this way and that way. I mean, we had a pretty clear idea of what we could do and what it could be like. And I don't think we need to shatter it personally at all, but I think we have to be very flexible and adaptable. I think the struggle that we may have, as much as anything, is just figuring out how to build community, how to really, I think loving the people is the most important thing. Putting on a service isn't enough. We've got to figure out how to love people and really pastor people in that area. I mean, and that doesn't really necessarily fit into some of these multi-site models. But that's where this team's job comes in, is like, how can I know these people's names and their stories? And maybe you guys have that. I know I haven't been able to have that. When I'm there, especially if you're helping set up and tear down, some of that stuff starts right after service is over, but you have a very short window. You have a very narrow window when people are coming in, when people are leaving, to really connect, unless they're in small groups. But anyway, I guess my overall feeling is that if we have 65 or 50 or 70 people showing up at this point, I think it's an indication of what could be. To me, it's an indicator that this is viable. And if it isn't, if people felt like it wasn't, we could walk away. We really could. I mean, I'd be okay with that. I'd be a little bit disappointed at an emotional level, but not much. Like, I feel like at this point, it'd be fine if that's but I don't know if that's what God would want. I feel like because of the conversations I have with people when I'm there, I feel differently about that. Like, if it was just me and not wanting to work harder, I might just walk away from it. We have plenty to do in Eureka and all that, but I feel like there's people there who are really reaching for it, and I think if it was more often, we could have more. I feel like there's a hunger in that area for just a healthy place, a healthy church where the Bible is taught, and where there's not great politics happening, and where people are balanced, and all of that. So, but that's just my view. I don't know how what you guys see is more.
Well, there's definitely a need
up front
down in that area for spirituality, especially in Scotia. Deb and I know a lot of the faces that come and go to Faith Center South.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people, a big part of them are already going to other churches.
Yeah.
But I think they're feeling the same thing we are, that there is a need down there, and I don't think everybody knows how to address it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There were a few things that kind of am I really blown up?
There you go.
There are a couple things from that story that kind of stuck out, which was why I wanted Matt to share, because that's probably my third or fourth time hearing that story. The first thing that stuck out to me was I empathized with Seth Waters and his idea that he can strategize a successful church plant. That hiring a consultant and doing all the right things, that can be enough, that even promotion strategies can be enough. But here was someone who did everything the right way, and it didn't work out. But what did work out was people being in the community, going and getting jobs and having those relationships and bringing people in through those relationships. And what's nice about this team is we already have jobs. We're already in the community, so we already have that going for us. And so to me, it was a reminder that it's very important that we do those formal promotional things. I mean, just right now, Staples is like cutting up all of our mailers that we can mail to all of Scotia. But it's important to do those things, but those things do not trump relational invitations and keeping an eye out. And so along that line, I actually thought that it would be good for each of us to think of maybe 3 people we can invite, or some sort of whatever that number is for you, but to come up with a number for yourself that you would like to hold yourself accountable and say, who in my life can I invite? And it's a really basic invitation. I invite people all the time. They're less likely to come because I invite people in Eureka, but you know people. So that was one thing that stuck out, but also listening to that story, it made me just remember our call to that area. I'm with Matt in that if this is not what God wants for us to do, then I can release that. But at the same time, I understand Seth when he said that basically he has to do it until God tells him not to. And we've run into numerous roadblocks. We've been trying to make this happen for like 2 years or something, and we're still at it because we feel like we haven't heard that no. So we're at it and we're persevering, and so I understand that, and the importance of keeping that in front of us too, that this isn't to just build Faith Center. This is because God has called us to a specific community, and we're going to keep at it until he tells us otherwise. And so remembering it's his vision, and that he has a vision. And I think in conversations with all of you that each of you has a part of that vision too, God's vision. Because when I talk to you, I hear that coming out, that God has placed a vision in your heart for this. So just, there are many encouraging things about that story for me, which is why I asked Matt to share it. Just to keep being relational, to challenge ourselves, to look for ways that we can push beyond just relying on formal promotion to really bring people in, and to remember that it's God's vision, that it's what he calls us to do, and that's why we're at it. That's why we keep going for it and why we keep persevering.
There's a couple other things. Like, we have more people attending there by far than ever attended our Willow Creek campus, and which went on for quite a long time. And I think that's important to remember. But I think based on what you shared about the people from other churches coming, because I've had conversations with some of those people as well, I don't think it's worth doing if that's all we have. If we have people who are going to other churches on Sundays and they just are hungry for more, I feel like most of us as American Christians have way too much input and not enough output. And if all we're doing is helping people get another meal that they really don't need, that's not worth it to me either. Now, if there's disenfranchised Christians that are living in that area going nowhere, that feel good about Faith Center as a place, or I've talked to people who work on Sunday mornings, and so the Sunday night option is a great option for them. That meets a need. Then those are the kinds of people who, for me, make it like worthwhile. But if somewhere along the way, if we could, we have to evaluate those things as accurately as we can to really get a gauge of what we're doing.
I think it's important, and this is probably a hard thing to do, is get the pulse of the community and see where we actually can take hold of that, instead of just showing up there and providing music and treat or snacks afterwards, but to actually find an area in the community where we can make an impact where people can actually see that and it actually affects their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know, like, because of my job, I manage actually in the school. And so one of my schools is Real Dell, which I've kept. And now I have 3 teachers in that school in the small group that I have in our house. But the thing that I've been thinking about is, okay, we're in group number 2. I have the same women, but I don't want it to be the same women. I really want it to grow. So, God, how do we do this? Because they all love the study, but I don't want it to become cliquish where it's the same group of women every study. I want it to grow. But I know half of the women are not attending church. That was a thing. And they're in the church.
Really good.
But then I do have some women that go to another church. And so, and I told them, I said, I'm not here for you to just go to our church. I want you to be planted in a church.
Yeah.
But here we're getting in the Word. And so then I also found out they want that fellowship. And so, like with the 12-week study, I said, okay, fine. Now I tell you, do your homework, because I know you. Do your homework. Here's your reward for doing your homework. But if halfway of the study we're going to fellowship, because you guys want a fellowship, they want to build a relationship. But at that time, that's when I want to talk to them and say, okay, this is a really good time to invite other people, because this is a breaking point. Don't go this way, let's go outward and see what's happening out there, because we can get so focused inward and get so comfortable.
Absolutely.
And I think that discontent, like that, the question you're asking about what can we do to actually impact the community, and how can we get a pulse of the community?
Well, I had an idea, but I don't know if it's a dumb idea, but because I've been kind of pondering that, what could we actually do where the community of Scotia and Riadale actually see an impact, where it actually is affecting people's lives. And I was thinking, and I work for the school, and there's no bus stop in Scotia for the kids to get under during the wintertime.
Wow.
And I mean, that's an impact. That's something that people would see when they drive by. And anyway, that was just an idea.
I think those feelings that you're sharing and those ideas, to me, those are really powerful. And even the feeling that if we're not doing this, we're wasting our time. I think that's an important thing to note too, because out of that, that's what gives us passion to do the right things. If we just feel great about what we're doing, we don't have any way to grow. But to really express those things and go after those things.
Well, it's a message to the community that we care about their kids.
Yeah. And to be, that's something we can do very easily. But just as you feel, to be patient with those things too. Because I think we all really want to do those kinds of things. And some things like that could be our project, like for the next 2 months. We have lots of construction people to knock that out. If they want it, if they're willing to let us do that. But that's a really good idea.
I think one of the things to make a bigger impact, well, not say bigger, but a big impact is God touching their life in their need. Where we can't even touch it. And when God meets a need where there's nowhere to go, and only God can touch it, it makes a big impact. And because it makes a big impact, they also speak out to their friends, their neighbors. But we got to pray that God touch their need and meet their need and fulfill it, so they know it's from God, and they know God is with Scotia South. Facing her south, and that way their word of their testimony will reach out and touch the other people, which will also bring them.
I want to share something that the women in the group, we had a mom, she's one of the teachers at Riadale, and she was pregnant, and she went to UCSF because they told her the baby didn't have a cleft palate. And so we were praying for her, and the baby was born. Grayson was born 2 weeks ago, and all he has is this little slit in his lip. He's got no cleft palate. And when the baby was born, the team, they were prepared for this baby to have this cleft palate, to go through everything. And half of them were believers in the room, and the grandma was also in the group, and they were all celebrating. So, here they're studying the Word. Some of them are not in church. And they prayed and they got to experience God, His faithfulness, So now they can take that and go on. And so we have another pregnant mom in our group. you know. And so I just said, see, God's honoring your prayers,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So they experience God, you know, and that's what we want for them.
I think to really make an impact, that it's very important that we all have a heart for the lost.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Very, very lost.
And that makes me really, again, just brainstorming creatively, what can we do to really reach those people? Having gone, down the road in Scotia to the park and just driving through those little houses that are like house to house and wondering, those people, or I bet you that if we did it door to door, we'd find most of those people don't go to anywhere, don't go to any church, But those might be also people, who are fairly low income, who would, benefit very easily, be drawn in by something like a meal, or at least to show, to think, what are the things that they need, or what are the things that would help us connect with them, begin to build a relationship. But
You don't go to Scotia School?
That's not my school. So I have Ferndale, I have Lita, I have Riddle, but Scotia's not mine, so. So it's really a fine line too, because when we get the shoes for the kids, I can only go so far, the superintendent can tell me, and then I shoot it straight to the church. But when that shoes was brought to that young man, just up as I was at the school a week later, and Leslie said, "Lily, that's the young man." So I got to see him. But the biggest impact on Leslie was, she said he went from walking like this, and now he was standing up and just carrying himself.
it's huge.
Do you work with the Community Resource Center from St. Joseph Hospital? St. Joseph Hospital?
Yeah. So I'm just in the school. So I see the kids, I see what they're like. Ferndale's another big school, Lee's another big school. There's a lot of stuff going on, is what we said.
But even that situation you're talking about, the school, the child getting his shoes and walking up tall, well, of course he goes home with the shoes. Well, what the parents gonna say?
Mom said, "Where'd you get the shoes from?" "From school." From the superintendent. So then the mom said, "Why?" "I don't know, they just gave me a pair of shoes." And then the mom found out what happened, was from the church. And so they were so grateful. And at one point, this family was homeless.
Wow.
So it really, so we don't know.
It's a tough area down there.
It really is.
And I think through the kids, we can reach the parents.
Yeah, the kids are just running around the building whenever we're there and just hanging out. It just shows. That's always a very open harvest field. If we can find creative ways of reaching out to them, whether it's, movie night or whatever we do, anything, BBS, any ideas will work with kids, I think.
But I know Faith Center has their Halloween thing.
Yeah.
What about Scotia?
Mm-hmm.
That used to be a big thing down in Scotia, but now it's not. It's died, and people really love that down there.
What did they do down there?
They had
Like the harvest party?
They had parties, and they had all the houses were open, because it was a family town. It was the lumber town. And everybody knew everybody. And the theaters where everybody came. They came for Christmas, and they had free gifts for all the kids. That theater has a lot of history.
Wow.
That was a family town, and it's gone. How can we bring that back? We need to bring back Scotia the way it used to be.
It's a tough area because a lot of the people that live there now are on assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of turkeys stuff.
Well, just anything I can do to help. I'm praying, and I'd like to pray with you before I go. I know you have other things on your agenda, but just keep talking to me, and anything we can do to help.
I think the theater down there is going to constantly be a challenge.
Yeah.
Just the way it's set up, and it actually it causes separation for people that sit up top versus people at the bottom. And what I've noticed is most of the people that come down to the tables are people from other churches or believers, but there's always that separation in there. That's always going to be a challenge.
Especially the ones coming in that are skeptical and not sure.
Yeah.
They want to stay from a distance.
Yeah. If we doubled in size, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. The way it is right now, it definitely is, because it's so big. It's not a huge theater, like I said. If we had twice as many people, it'd be okay to sit up there. But right now, I almost feel like I don't want people to sit up there, but they want to sit up there sometimes, you know.
It's dark a little bit, so, and I know that they are working on getting their gymnasium up and running, and it's not gonna be just for the school. The gymnasium can be used to rent out and stuff, and that's really neat gym. It's a very
Are they building a gym?
No, they have a gym. They're raising money to get it back.
Remodeling.
Remodeling it. It's a beautiful gym, and it's it's neat. Might be something that it's gonna take them about a year to get it back up and running again. They're gonna rent it out. And there's a pool there.
I mean, they've rented to us every
They could. There's a pool, you said?
At the gymnasium.
Yeah.
And it's out of commission, probably?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all gonna be fixed when they
Wow.
do the
Where
remodeling.
is this gym?
Yeah.
It's up by the elementary school.
On the hill.
Yeah.
Church-
It's really
Church
neat.
Street.
Yeah.
So do they need help fixing the gymnasium? Are they doing?
Well, I heard they got some, a fund, a grant to
But they're
to
still
redo it,
short.
so
You know.
it's probably gonna take them a good year or so to do, to complete it, so.
Scott, thank you for stepping up too and just being available to help Scotia.
I'll do what I can.
It's a miracle. Let me just tell you that. I think I had a conversation with Scott once upon a time where he really was not going to do
I wasn't gonna do anything.
anything. Yeah, exactly. So,
Been there.
yeah. Well, could I pray for you guys and for the work there? Okay. Well, Lord, we thank you for what you've already done in Scotia through this team and the others who have been serving as leaders, and I think it's just the people who enjoy going. We have a lot of people down in that area that just like to go when we have a Sunday night service down there. I think of the Loops and some of the others who just come consistently. And I just pray that you would give us direction as leaders, wisdom, vision. Lord, that in every one of these meetings, even as we're sharing ideas, that your Holy Spirit would be working to deposit values within our hearts, the value to reach the lost, the wisdom to keep outwardly focused, the discernment to know that we're not here just to bless Christians who are doing nothing. Lord, we're here for a very different reason, and I pray that you would give us the boldness to recognize spiritual warfare when we face it, because it just shows up in really practical ways that don't always seem very spiritual, but Lord, give us that discernment and wisdom, and we know that you are the victor and the battle is yours. And we ask that you would go before us continually, and that, Lord, you would help us to reach the lost in this community. I pray that every weekend, Lord, that we are able to meet there, every Sunday night that we can meet there, Lord, that you would show us what you are doing. You would give us that insight to know how to go forward. If we're to go forward, Lord, that we would just have that assurance and confirmation one way or another. We are moving forward with the belief that you have called us, Lord. But we just want to walk in the Spirit. We want to do what you've called us to do. And so bless this team with wisdom and strength and peace, and be speaking to each one of them. I think of the hard work that goes into the setup and the teardown, especially some of that physical work. Lord, I pray you make that light as possible. Make it as fun as possible, and raise up, just give our team all the help that they need in that area to make it something that is sustainable too. So I just commit this to you, and pray that even this week, as we reach out once again, that you would help us to lead someone to Christ, or help someone have the opportunity to get connected who's not connected anywhere. Help us to reach people who work on Sunday mornings, or people who haven't found a church and are looking. Lord, I pray that they would find this is the place you've called them to be and to serve. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you.